What's up, guys? It's Brandon Flash. Today you're joining me in Columbia, South Carolina, and we're at a version 4, or at least version 4 post Tesla Supercharger, as you can see behind me. So you may have noticed that I specifically called out that this is a version 4 post Tesla Supercharger site, because technically version 4 superchargers are not actually a thing yet. Every site that we've seen with version 4, which there's been probably somewhere in the 10 to 20 range in Europe, and I believe this is number 3 or maybe 4 in the United States. I know there's Sparks, Nevada, there's one in Alabama, there's one in Georgia, and now this one. So I guess number 4 that I'm aware of, at least, that's live. They all have these new version 4 dispensers that you can see behind us, or as Tesla calls them, posts, or whatever you want to call them, the part that actually plugs into your car. However, those cabinets there, those are what are actually powering those posts, and those are the exact same as the version 3 supercharger, which I've actually done quite a few deep dives on. So I'm going to give you guys a full tour of this site. I have my Tesla run down to 0% state of charge. It's a 2023 Tesla Model Y all-wheel drive. It does a max charging rate of 230 kilowatts. However, it still should max out the charger as far as amps delivered. It will do about 680 amps on a dead battery. But as with all my videos, we're going to get into the nerdy details, and I'm going to give you guys a full tour. So if you've watched one of my site tour videos before, you know that I generally like to work kind of downstream as far as the electrical flow. So we're going to start here. This is a utility transformer. It's 1,000 kVA. We'll see who the utility is if we can. Looks like we are in Dominion Energy territory, so it's a Dominion Energy meter in there. And this is provided by the utility, 1,000 kVA. That is typical for a 12 stall or 3 cabinet version 3 Tesla Supercharger. Over here, we have the distribution cabinet or switchgear, depending on what you want to call it. This is a Lincoln Electric EV2, and this is 1,600 amps. Again, that is totally typical for a 12 stall Tesla Supercharger site, or at least for a version 3. Noticing here, it's a little bit interesting. They took off one of the lifting hooks, but left 3 of the other ones. So that's strange. See, you can see these are just like, I'm not going to push that in, but I could. These are designed to be removed. So that's just a little bit weird. But this has a main circuit breaker of 1,600 amps, and then it has 3 600 amp branch circuit breakers, and those are what are actually feeding these supercharger cabinets. So here we have 3 version 3 Tesla Supercharger cabinets. There's a helicopter going over. Now that the helicopter's passed, I can actually speak with you guys hearing me. So as I mentioned, these are actually version 3 Tesla Supercharger cabinets. So I looked, and as far as I can tell, they are the exact same part number. However, it has switched from a G part revision to an H part revision. But these are the same 387 kVA cabinets. They are still maxing out at 500 volts and still max output of 250 kilowatts. However, you can see, as usual, they have the 880 to 1,000 volt DC bus, and they can do up to 640 amps between the cabinets. And also the output current to the post, which is what actually goes to the car, has not changed. That's still showing 631 amps. If you're curious more about the Tesla version 3 supercharger architecture, I've actually done a couple deep dives on this. I did one talking about the prefabricated supercharger unit setup and how that all works and kind of the art of that. This appears that it may have been a pre-cast slab that was put in, potentially cast in place. It's hard to, actually this is probably cast in place, never mind. But basically we have the star center cabinet here. So this is what's controlling the DC bus that goes between these cabinets, because even though these are 387 kVA cabinets and they go to 4 posts, they can actually move power between these 3 cabinets. So that way, if you have 4 vehicles that go to 4 posts that are all in the same cabinet, you're not going to be limited to the power from just that cabinet. It will actually pull up to 575 kilowatts from 2 other cabinets. So it's a pretty slick system. It works quite well. Time will tell how that will work when these sites open up to other vehicles that have more aggressive charging curves. That kind of load management, I think, is very effective for charging sites that are being used by Teslas, because Tesla's charging curve is very peaky. So it goes up very high and then drops pretty aggressively. So you don't need to sustain high power on every post very long. You're just going to have that peak, and then it's going to drop, and then power becomes available for other vehicles. That's not going to be the case when you have vehicles like Rivians, Hummers, etc. that are charging and are drawing large amounts of power for longer periods of time. So coming off of these cabinets, each one of these cabinets has 4 posts that are wired to it. So you have 1, 2, and 3, and then you have 3D, 3C, 3B, 3A, and continuing on logically, you have 2D, 2C, 2B, 2A, and then we'll come down here towards my car, and then we'll also plug it in just a moment. We have 1D, 1C, we have 1B, and 1A over here. So this is a pretty well done site. I like the bollard placement there coming around this corner. They put it off of the typical spot because if they put it there, there's no reason for that to be there. These posts are quite tall. They're actually taller than me when they're on a curb. I'll show you in a second. So this post is on probably a 6-inch curb. I'm 6'3". It's taller than me. It's a good probably 7 feet tall. These are not small posts. And here you can see they have an accessible stall, so they actually have the handicap ground marking, which is pretty interesting. Tesla doesn't typically do that. Normally they'll just have signage like this. They may not even put the van accessible sign if they don't have to. They typically just put a design for disabled access, use last sign, because that way it's encouraging others to be able to use it if needed, which is how it should be in my opinion. However, it's not restricting the use because the overlap between those that have handicap placards and also drive a Tesla or other EV is not that large. So restricting the use doesn't necessarily make sense, but having it as a use last does make sense. It's very similar to a restroom that if you have a handicapped stall, anyone can use it. However, it is designed to give priority to those that need it. So coming over to the post here. So they do seem a bit more solid than a version 3 post, but still, I'd say a little kind of chintzy, I would describe it as. It shakes a little bit if you push on it. It's very plasticky, but Tesla has kind of always designed these to be a bit superficial, if you will. And that model works pretty well because Tesla is making the parts, they're servicing them. So they want to keep costs as low as possible because they're their own customer. However, that system somewhat breaks when they start selling to others like they have done with BP. So time will tell how that all comes out. Coming to the cable here. So this is kind of the defining feature of version 4. It's this longer cable. So you can see how far this is. I'm going to guess this is probably about a 3 to 3.5 meter cable roughly. And also, unlike in Europe, we have NACs here. So this is 1,000 volt NACs. And the way you can tell is because it has this additional spacing, because that will allow for 1,000 volt. And that's just per the NAC spec. So that looks different than a typical NACS plug or what you'd see on any other supercharger. And also very interesting, they removed the locating pins on the DC pins here. So you can see there's no longer a pin on top of those upper larger pins. Normally there would be a pin in the middle that kind of helps locate it as it's going into your vehicle. This is a pretty chunky handle. It's definitely thicker than a version 2 or version 3. They actually say it's pretty similar to a version 2. The cable itself, again, pretty similar to version 2, so the air-cooled cables. However, this is an immersion-cooled, liquid-cooled cable. And let me just show you the ratings here. We'll pop that back in there. So hopefully you guys can see this. It's getting a little bit dark here. But these are rated for 615 amps continuous. Looks like that piece is in the way. But you can see, where is that? Sorry, over here. So we have 615 amps continuous. That's at 100% rating for 1,000 volts DC. You can see that these are also field evaluated by ETL Internet to meet the UL specs. And then over here you have the metering information. You have just the different accuracy ratings, things like that. You have the meter serial number. You have the post serial numbers. And then you can see that these were made in Buffalo, New York. Also interesting, these do in fact have Magic Dock. And you can tell that because you can see this spot here and how it has that ring. And it's interesting because they seem like they want to come out almost. You can kind of, it makes a weird noise if you do that. However, this site is not yet open to non-Tesla use. It doesn't show up on the map. That's still limited to Tesla use only. And here we have a payment terminal. So this is the first time I've ever seen these on the actual Pater Apollo kind of standby screen, but it looks like they're just cycling through that to not get any screen burn in. Normally these have been left off. However, in this case, they're just kind of set on the Pater standby screens. So they're not actually being used for anything right now. But enough with talking about these. Why don't we actually get plugged in? We've got my Tesla here. I'll show you that it's drained down. I've actually got the heater blasting as well, just to continue to drain it down. We're down to 0% displayed. However, I arrived here with 0% and I've been blasting the heat since. And down here I have Teslax running on my iPad. When I arrived, it was at 4.7% actual state of charge. And now we're down to 2.8% actual state of charge. So here you can see the Supercharger listing on here itself. So 12 stalls. Interestingly, it doesn't have stall availability shown, so it doesn't give you a ton of confidence when you're arriving here. We do have another Model 3 that just showed up, but it's 36 cents a kilowatt hour for now, and this is kind of to the east side of Columbia. If this wants to load, it looks like, oh, it's just connected to my hotspot. Okay, I'll turn that off. So you can see some of the other Superchargers in the area. Columbia actually has quite a few Superchargers. You got 2 there, you got 3, kind of all the different ins and outs of Columbia, and this one's a little bit more towards center. And just for reference, Columbia is just south of Charlotte. So a lot of people will pass through here if they're going to Augusta, if they're going to Savannah, if they're going to Charleston. So it's definitely a common passing through spot, even if it's not the most populated area, but it's certainly not an unpopulated area either. So let's go into the high voltage battery screen. So you can see battery is nice and warmed up. We have 0 current coming in right now. Obviously, we're not plugged in. We're blasting the heater at 4 kilowatts. I'm going to turn the heater off. And we're now going to go plug in, and we're going to see what we max out at. I must say, that is not the best experience. Let's just try that again. So I just tried to grab it like you normally do. And if you try to kind of pull to the side a little bit at all, it actually catches. So you have to pull kind of straight down. And it's pretty firm in there. That's actually a pretty noticeable degradation in experience for Tesla drivers, I would say. And this is actually worse than on version 3 with Magic Dock, I'd say, because these cables are heavier and you don't have just a completely open space beneath you like you do in a version 3 that has a Magic Dock retrofitted. And it's also kind of tight behind the cable here, unlike a Magic Dock where you have probably a good 3-4 inches. So not the best in my opinion. You're also having to pull the cable all the way from the far side of the post here. So you kind of have to pull it over, and then you have to have a bit of a twisting motion like that, and then we can plug it in there. So let's get in the car. We'll take a look at the current flow. Swipe that out of the way. We already have contactors clicking. And we're ramping up 177 kilowatts, 643, 660. So it looks like we peaked at about 660 amps, which is about exactly the same as I'd expect on a version 3 supercharger. So not exactly surprising. That's exactly what I would expect. We're getting 220 kilowatts as the pack voltage is going up there. Pack voltage went down quite a bit, but again, that's not surprising. So we're going to charge up here, and then we're going to head back to Charlotte. So just some final thoughts here. The lighting is actually pretty lacking on this site. As you can see, there are no lights over the actual installation. It's getting pretty dark as the sun is going down. Really a bit strange that they would not add lights. They have a pole here for, I believe that's a Wi-Fi antenna, but there's no light on there. So that's very strange to me. Even if they did kind of low profile lights, it would still be an improvement. But overall, I must say, for now, Tesla's version 4 supercharger, or as what I'll call it, Tesla version 3.5 superchargers, are kind of a nothing burger. They have new posts. They look nice. Functionally, I would actually say they're a bit of a downgrade from version 3. If you're a Tesla owner, the cable length improvement is obviously more than welcome for non-Tesla use. However, Tesla first needs to actually open these for non-Tesla use. So It seems like they're kind of just doing it where they can get money of some sort or some sort of benefit from it, rather than just doing it for their own goodwill. Because why would Tesla enable these for CCS vehicles if NACS is being adopted by all these different OEMs and they'll just be able to use that natively? But it's nice that Tesla has been doing this and enabling it, so that way as we have vehicles with different charge port locations, they can actually use it more effectively. Anyway, would love to hear what you guys think, just kind of based on what I've shown. This is, of course, one of the very first in North America, so I'm sure we'll be seeing plenty more pop up. Would love to hear it down below. Comment, like, subscribe, you know the drill. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one.